What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the altar again, and this time we return with the entirety of Spotlights. It is great to be able to talk with all of you again. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for
Yeah,
having us,
thank you.
man.
Yeah,
Good to see you.
yeah, good to see you as well. The new album, Alchemy for the Dead, is absolutely awesome. For people who haven't heard the full album yet, though, do you feel like that the first singles that we heard, such as Algorithmic and Sunset Burial, is a good representation of this whole album? Or being that, we got an EP in 2020 and another EP this year, that like maybe there's a lot more tricks and twists to be discovered?
I think a little bit of both. I think they definitely set the stage for the fact that this record, we kind of went a little bit different, went to maybe a different space with everything. But then again, there are still some twists and turns on the actual album that I think people might enjoy or might hate.
Was there at all like a preconceived vision of what Alchemy for the Dead is supposed to sound like? Was there at all like a vision that you had in mind, or did it just kind of turn out that way, that the full length follow up to Love and Decay would be different?
No, I mean the fact that it's different was definitely the main focus. Like the actual sound and the songs themselves were almost secondary to the idea that we just didn't want to do the same thing again. We didn't want to make just another Spotlights.
How did like the changes of the world really impact the making of this record? And for you, Chris, you've been very busy as well lately with playing with a bunch of other projects, so that also maybe allow you to bring in some new tricks and twists into Alchemy for the Dead as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think also us not living in the same city probably as well, because we used to practice together in person. I mean, we didn't really write stuff together, but like we definitely like used to at least get together. And so this is like very disjointed. I was getting songs emailed to me and then demoing stuff and then sending it back and then getting feedback and then back and forth. So, that was probably one difference also. I don't know if that has anything to do with the pandemic, but, the last full length that we made, everyone still lived here. So we at least were in the same room together when we were doing it.
Not even though actually, because it was just you and me, and then Sarah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always
And
working.
I was by myself doing all my guitars. So
Yep.
Well,
that's just kind of how we make records. That's how it goes. But actually, I think this one was the most we've collaborated too. Like Chris and I got together. We really like sent a lot of ideas back and forth. Like, because I guess to your question too, like another reason for it being a little more different is the way we approached it was trying to kind of like collaborate a little more and not just like me writing demos and having and then recording them basically.
yeah.
So Chris would like send me beats. A lot of this, the main idea for this record was really stemmed from like drum beats and bass lines and just maybe not the full structures of the songs, but just the initial ideas came mostly from like beats that either Chris would send me or I would come up with something and send it to him, and he would, either he digged it or didn't, and we kind of built it off of there.
Yeah, I think at one point we were sending each other different types of music that we were listening to also, remember? Like playlists. And
Yep.
it was definitely like trying to pull from things that wouldn't be a typical, whatever, like try to think outside the box, I guess, is what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Oh, Boris is
You
coming.
see
Oh.
Boris
Right.
in the stairs.
I
That
didn't see
little
him.
you're right there.
I didn't see him yet, but I'm waiting for Boris to come down.
Everybody's favorite.
Yep, everybody's favorite cat.
But yeah, I mean, and Chris actually flew out for a period of time. We spent like 5 days, just kind of like, I think it was before a tour or before a show or something, and we just sat in the room and like just hashed ideas out and tried things together. So like a song like Sunset Burial, that was all written together and not like jamming, but like coming up with parts and being, Chris had the idea for that initial beat, which really sparked the whole rest of the song,
Well, I
we had
was,
never done that before.
yeah, I was gonna ask actually, because with Love and Decay, I could be wrong in terms of the timeline, but I think with Love and Decay you were all still living in New York at the same time. So I was wondering if maybe like the move and maybe that kind of distance at maybe sort of adhered to the, or like sort of influenced the new sound that was going? Because I felt like distance and isolation is always such a great fuel for creativity, but I think the move that happened pre-pandemic may have also made an impact.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to say. I think the EP we put out before this, the We Are All Atomic, I think that had more of was impacted a lot by the pandemic, and even like the writing and the recording of it, because I had to like finish that record during the pandemic, basically, like right when it started, right before it started, pretty much. And then we didn't get to tour on it. We didn't get to do anything on it. So like that. And I mean, well, you know, it doesn't kind of make sense because we, halfway through the pandemic, we just stopped doing anything. Like we didn't make any more music. I wasn't really playing a lot, or at least not like writing stuff for spotlights or anything like that. So it kind of went through like a phase of like, we don't know what we're doing. And then maybe a year ago, a little over, maybe a year and a half ago, started just kind of getting the energy to like do something new. And we wanted to tour again, and it's kind of hard to tour without having any sort of new product out there.
Now you're stacked with a bunch of new product that you need to.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I mean, it definitely affects it in a sense. I think Sarah and I moving out here was huge for us, just because living in New York was just not conducive to like what we were trying to do as a band. Is just too expensive, too like stressful to be a band at this like small of a level and try to survive doing it, you know. So the move here opened up a huge, I mean, it just like took away a lot of the stress, most of the stress. You know, it's so much cheaper to live here. We have a house, we have space, I was able to build a proper studio down in the basement, not just like random practice rooms where we've recorded our other records. So a lot of that definitely helps, just because it's easier. You know, you don't have all these worries constantly of like having to just pay bills and rent all the time.
Of course. Yeah. When it comes to like the material and the ideas that you all come up with, do you all kind of need to be in the same headspace emotionally? Because I think all of you have your own unique sounds and your own unique contributions to the band. So do all of you need to kind of feel the same way when writing the music together, or could all of you being in your different frame of minds actually help maybe impact the sound that we hear in Spotlights?
I think we're always all in different, you know, state of minds when we do anything together. I don't think we have ever tried to force each other to, you know, be on the same like wavelength or whatever. And I think that's what sparks a lot of creativity, is having those different feelings and emotions come across, you know, in the music.
Yeah, and I think also like since this was the first time we like collaborated, you know, to this degree, like, you know, obviously like you know, you'll have different ideas that someone else might not like. So like we definitely had like conversations where I might have suggested something or liked something and then disagreed on it in a, you know, in a very professional way, obviously, like where we would kind of come to a conclusion of like whether something was good or not. And there was actually at least a song or two that didn't make it onto anything, I think, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple songs that didn't make it onto the EP or the album.
Like
which
there
is
was
cool. You know, like we kind of tried everything and weren't afraid of just, some stuff was just, I think not bad, but it was just too different and it didn't fit in the scheme of like what we ended up with. And like the whole theme of the record was developed throughout the process. So by the end of that process, we really it just had to kind of make sense within the Alchemy for the Dead umbrella, I guess, to like the vibe of it all.
You ever worried that that's going to be a B-side one day, just be the biggest hit you guys ever had?
there was one song that I came up with a drum beat for, and then Mario wrote and recorded a demo around it, and I liked it. I don't know if everyone else did, but then it didn't make it onto anything. And then there was another song that we kind of jammed on and made up, and then played it with Sarah, and I think Sarah didn't like it after she listened to it a few times. But then we took a part of
that song, and it's actually in Sunset.
But we always save those ideas, and I'm sure it'll be used at some point. Where it fits. Like there's songs on all of our records that are really old. Whether it's a guitar riff or just an idea, like.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 songs on this album on Alchemy for the Dead that are from 2014, like literally some of the first Spotlight songs I ever wrote.
Really? Yeah, there's a song on the record we actually performed.
Both of those songs.
Yeah, in New York, like when we first started, that we reworked and they fit.
Yeah.
Because before we tried to fit them on other things and it never worked out. So you never know,
Well, because like as a fan of Spotlights, if you like played me like 30 seconds to a minute of a song, I could be able to tell that that's off of like Seismic and that's off of Love and Decay, etc. So I think it's fair to say that bringing in new elements into Spotlights, because 1 minute you have parts that are truly crunchy and really heavy with a lot of groove, but then you have a song like Walls that brings in that sort of like mesmerizing piano part that kind of like waves around it. So like it's fair to say that there really is no boundaries and that it's pretty flexible to incorporate new elements into Spotlights, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's one thing I think that a lot, and it seems like that's why I get confused when we get kind of like genre'd out so much in certain genres, just because if you really listen to like our full catalog, there's like electronic songs we basically like almost like dance music, not necessarily dancey, but like it's all over the place. So we're lucky that we've done that, so we've been able to kind of keep changing without people thinking we're doing like a full 180 of any sort.
We wrote an entire ska album in 2020.
Yeah, that's right.
Are you fucking with me here?
Waiting for it to fully come back.
Yeah.
Just in case that gets big, so that we can jump on that trend.
Right.
So we can say that we did it a couple of years ago, and you know what I mean, instead of jumping on the bandwagon in the present time.
Shoegaze is out, ska is in.
That should be the name of the next album.
That should have been the name of this album.
I could see you play with a ska band though, because as somebody who has seen you play with Deftones, but also seen you play with Astronoid, and then see you play with Pallbearer, it almost seems like you're able to kind of play in front of many different audiences. And do you almost kind of maybe adjust your set list depending on who you are playing with?
Definitely.
We do, yeah. Yeah, because we do have such a wide range of like emotions and songs that I think I'd be comfortable playing with anybody, any style. For us, as long as they're good people, that's all that really matters to us.
Yeah. I mean, that's.
Yeah. Go ahead.
If we're playing with like on a tour with like a really heavy band, we have enough material to pull from to make sure that it that we don't seem completely out of place, but at the same time it still works within what we do.
I mean, like when we toured with the Melvins, we were playing a Box of Talking Heads, which is probably like our most electronic song. It has some live drums, but it's super mellow almost the whole time, and that ended up being one of the we kept getting really good responses to that song. So it's like you never know what an audience is going to want. Even at a metal show, like a super heavy show, sometimes a little bit of difference is good. You don't want to see the same band 4 times in a night. You want to kind of keep it interesting.
Fair enough. I totally agree. I mean, sometimes it works for like a hardcore show or a death metal show, but I think with the bands that you've played with, I think you kind of have to. My neighbor's dog is barking, and I'm just wondering if that's going to make everybody rise up. But
we can't hear it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for Boris to just jump up in the background. I was wondering if Boris was going to cat bomb or photobomb the interview.
I know. I thought he was going to, but he just woke up from a nap, so he's being lazy.
Boris, the ultimate pigeon killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I love it.
And
I love
these
it.
animals were definitely present for the recording as well.
Oh yeah.
This is the
Oh yeah.
best. This is the best right now. I love this.
Here, you're about to experience something good
No.
here.
Oh, she gave up.
She usually gets mad when Boris comes around.
Oh, really? Oh. But when it comes to the music that we hear in spotlights, do you all prefer to use this music as more of an escapism from the everyday realities that we live in, or is this music mainly coming from a personal emotion that you were all feeling at that time?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like this record in particular, I think is it's pretty personal, but at the same time, it's totally kind of fantasy in a sense. You know, like it's all. I think like any kind of fiction writing or a lot of music, it's like it might come from a real personal place, but at least somebody like me, like lyrically, like I don't write like I don't like I don't know. I just it's usually kind of vague or left up to interpretation. So like I think it's a little bit of both.
I've always wondered if spotlights did approach things from like a conceptual standpoint, because I thought like with a album title like Love and Decay, for example, that like that they kind of love is one of those things where it can decay over time. So I was wondering if maybe it is the process of the decaying love, or if it's meant to be two different journeys, the process of love and the process of decay. So I was wondering if Alchemy for the Dead maybe sort of had like a similar effect. I did think that Spotlights did stand a lot for paradoxes and have that sort of thinking aspect behind the music.
Yeah, definitely. Love and Decay was definitely that, and I think even like Seismic has a very kind of like set theme to it, of just like destruction and the end of the world and how humans suck. Um, and and Alchemy is a similar thing too. You know, there's a little bit of a paradox of just life and death and what people do to deal with that and how different people perceive it.
Is it always coming from a main personal source of inspiration in a way, or do you kind of like, is there maybe like external sources of inspiration, like whether it would be looking at other mediums of art or other people's stories?
I mean, I think it's inevitable to have some sort of inspiration. Like, you know, we're inspired by everything all the time. It's just, uh, you know, I don't. There's not like a lot of like I couldn't like pinpoint specific aspects of inspiration necessarily for this record, especially. Um, it kind of came. I think the inspiration for this record was like again just like trying to push ourselves and not repeat ourselves again.
Yeah, that was a conversation that was had a lot. I don't think we ever had discussions like that as far as any other things that we did together that I was involved with, where we talked
Yeah.
about what we could do, and that was also like trying to not like Mario said, like not do the same thing, which is why I think we were sharing some playlists and things or just songs that we liked that weren't from anything that would sound remotely similar to what we do. You know, like just to kind of like maybe just a drum beat from a song or whatever, a vibe or a mood of something. You know, um, yeah. And then when we recorded it, we too like the way we did it was also really different in terms of the specifically the drums like they were not recorded at the same time as I'm sorry, they weren't recorded live like at the same time. So like all the cymbals and the drums were handled completely separate. Which to anyone that's not a recording musician, it's not really like the way that most people do things. And it helped us get those cool sounds on Sunset Burial and Algorithmic, for example. Like those are all real drums, but they were kind of treated differently to sound like not typical rock drums, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And I have two more questions for you. This is a new debate I like to have. I kind of want all three of your perspectives on this, because it's going back to the topic of inspiration. Is inspiration really something that could be sought out? Can you really look for inspiration, or is inspiration something that just kind of has to strike you in a way?
For me personally, I can't go looking for it, because I think that blinds you to like what's actually right in front of your face. I think you just have to be open to anything, because sometimes things you would never expect to inspire you do inspire you. So I don't think it's really something you can seek out. It just happens for me personally. It could be an art gallery. It could be checking out at Target. Like who knows? It's like it's random.
I mean, yeah, that's the 100% it for me too. Like I've never, or I don't think I've ever really like sought out like, specific inspiration for any sort of music that I've written. But like, for example, like the song Seismic off of Seismic, the first song, was inspired by the train. This like how sometimes on the trains in New York, the like bing bong is like kind of fucked up. The whatever the speaker was fucked up, and so it was like slower. It was like bing bong, and if you listen to that song, it's literally that. It sparked an idea in my head, and I was on the way home on the train, and by the time I got home, I basically had like the song in my head.
And now, next time that happens, I'm gonna listen to that song now on the train because that's
you should.
Yeah, it's gonna make me think of that song. Excellent.
I was surprised that I didn't pick up on it without Mario telling me that, because I hear that like several times a day.
It's built in, yeah. Wow. Well, it's really funny, like living in a city where we have to drive again, because other than like New York or Chicago or San Francisco, most cities don't have like massive transportation systems. So when I'm at a red light and the walk sign changes, sometimes I try to go and I have to remember I'm in a car.
Yeah.
And I have to wait for the light, but I'm so used to looking at walk signs that like it'll trip me up. It's pretty funny.
That's why I can never live in New York.
Like the built in
or outside of New York. That's why I can never live outside of New York, because like I would jaywalk everywhere I go and realize like the first time I walked to try to cross the street in LA, I almost died like 3 times. So like
you have to pay attention.
Yeah.
I know people have gotten like $200 tickets for jaywalking in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
I didn't know that you couldn't do that in other places. And the first time I was in LA, I was walking across the street and it wasn't a green light. And the people all were like looking at me like I did something like it's like, what's happening? What's the problem? What are you doing? And I'm like, crossing the street.
I'm crossing the street.
I think if you tell them you're from New York, though, then they'll all understand.
Right.
Yeah.
And
really fun.
The final question I wanted to ask is, I've talked extensively on how a Spotlight's performance is just truly a mesmerizing experience for me, and it really does take you on an epic journey. But I've seen Spotlights play at a variety of different venues as well. Like I saw you guys play at Irving Plaza, which is, a much more, a larger scale venue with the barricade and all that. But then, I've seen you play at places like St. Vitus or Knitting Factory or elsewhere where it's like more intimate and, you could pretty much be on the stage. I think the last show you played at elsewhere, I was like sitting on like the side of the stage. So depending on like the type of venue that you're in, does that almost create a different performance or a different vibe for when you're performing the music as well?
For me, it does. I think, it's weird. It does and it doesn't. Like it. I think the initial energy is the same for me. Like when we go out there and it's like, all right, we're going to do what we do no matter what, whether there's 10 people here or 10,000 or whatever. But like, but yeah, the space I much prefer having people like right there. If it's the right crowd and they're there to be there, they're into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
'Cause that's just the connection. Like, that's what it's all about for me, is like when you see people really like connecting to it.
More the crowd than the space for me.
Yeah, probably.
It's just how everyone's energy is responding. You can feel that when you're up there playing. We've played in front of like 4 people that were really engaged and it felt great. Where we've played in front of 3,000 people randomly getting hot dogs and drinks and it felt really isolating, and there's like 2 people watching you.
Like in the seats
20 feet away. So it's I think it's really just like the crowd engagement more than anything.
And certain cities respond differently, or certain crowds respond differently. So it's like we've had shows that are great shows, and like after the show, people are super complimentary. How do you say, like, giving you compliments, etc. Buying all kinds of shit, being like, that was amazing. But during the show, they're just kind of like,
Well,
so it's hard to really like get through it when it's like that, because you don't know. I'm like, do you guys want to be here, or are we doing something wrong? What do you know? But I get it, and I mean, when I go to a show, I'm not like jumping up and down all over the place, so you have to kind of remember that too. It's just weird.
I had that reaction when I saw you play at Coney Island Amphitheater, and that's a massive venue, and I haven't forgotten it to this day. So, August, that was August 6th, 2016. I ain't forgetting that. So,
damn, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I was totally blacked out at that, and I did not. I've tried to forget that night many times.
Chris got in trouble that night with us, and he hadn't even played a show with us yet.
Yeah, happens to the best of us. It's that hardcore roots.
Yeah.
So,
formed our bond.
Yep.
Before we go, I want to thank all of you so much for your time and for coming back onto the show. And thank you most of all for another epic album. Is there just anything else with Alchemy for the Dead that you would like to promote? I know that you got the tour coming through all of June. You're coming to St. Vitus June 24th. But what else could we be expecting from Spotlights in the future, if you're allowed to say, of course?
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much it. We're really looking forward to doing a full U.S. tour again and seeing everybody.
Yeah.
We have some cool new merch. We're just really excited to be back at it, and getting to the West Coast and getting to places we haven't been in a long time.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I think for us, like, it's just exciting to have a new record out, and I mean, so far people have been so awesome with like comments and reactions to it. So it's getting us super pumped to just go out and play the songs live. And I mean, we just hope people come to the shows. That's our one favor we ask of fans, is like, just get out of bed and go to the show, because it means everything to us when people show up.
I'll be there for sure.
Awesome.
We
can't wait.
Thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Spotlights. Be sure to check out Alchemy for the Dead, coming out this April of 2023. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.
Yeah.